In the quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, the summer of 1912 began like any other. Families tended their farms, children played in the dusty streets, and neighbors exchanged friendly greetings. But one house on 2nd Street would soon become the scene of a nightmare that would haunt the town forever. The Moore family, Josiah, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children, were brutally murdered one night. Their house, normally warm and full of life, was found eerily silent the next morning. An axe lay near the bodies, its handle smeared with blood, and no one in the town could comprehend how such a horrific act could occur in a place so peaceful. The neighbors were terrified. Who could commit such a crime? Why target this family? And most chilling of all, how had the murderer slipped in and out without leaving a trace? The town of Villisca was left stunned, the air heavy with fear, and the house itself seemed to whisper the secrets of that terrible night. The Villisca axe murders had begun their dark legacy, a story of terror, mystery, and unanswered questions that would haunt generations to come. The morning after the murders began like any other, until something felt wrong. The Moore house was unusually quiet. No children playing, no movement, no sign of life. Concerned, a neighbor decided to check on the family. What she found would haunt her forever. Inside the house, the air was heavy and still. One by one, the bodies were discovered, each victim attacked in their sleep. The Moore family, along with 2 young guests, lay motionless, the brutality of the crime almost impossible to comprehend. The axe used in the murders was found inside the house, as if the killer had no fear of being caught. But what made it even more disturbing were the strange details. Mirrors were covered, windows were blocked, a piece of clothing had been placed over one victim's face. It was as if the killer had taken time after the murders, moving calmly through the house, leaving behind a chilling, almost ritual-like scene. News spread quickly through Villisca. Crowds gathered outside the home, whispers turning into panic. Who could have done this? And more terrifying, was the killer still nearby? The small, peaceful town had suddenly become a place of fear, where every neighbor looked at each other with suspicion, and every shadow felt alive. As the shock settled over Villisca, the investigation began, but it quickly spiraled into confusion. The crime scene had been contaminated by curious townspeople who had wandered through the house before authorities arrived. Crucial evidence was lost, and with it, any clear path to the killer. Still, the police had to act. Suspicion fell on several individuals, each with their own secrets. One of the first was a traveling preacher, whose strange behavior and violent past raised alarms. Then there were rumors of a local man seen near the house that night, his story changing with every telling. But nothing could be proven. Every lead seemed to fade into darkness, leaving behind more questions than answers. The people of Villisca grew restless. Fear turned into paranoia, and paranoia into accusation. Neighbors whispered behind closed doors, wondering if the monster they feared was someone they already knew. The most terrifying thought lingered in everyone's mind. The killer had stayed in the house after the murders. He had moved quietly through the rooms, covering mirrors, watching over the victims, and then vanished before sunrise. Whoever he wasn't just a murderer. He was patient, calculated, and possibly still out there, hiding in plain sight. As weeks turned into months, one suspect began to stand out above all others, a traveling preacher named George Kelly. His past was troubled, his behavior unpredictable, and rumors about him spread quickly through the frightened town. Kelly had been in Villisca around the time of the murders. Witnesses claimed he acted strangely, wandering the streets late at night and speaking in unsettling ways. When questioned, his stories were inconsistent, shifting with each retelling. Soon, suspicion turned into obsession. Under intense pressure, Kelly eventually confessed to the murders. His words painted a horrifying picture, describing the crime in disturbing detail. The town believed the nightmare was finally over, the axeman of Villisca had been found. But something wasn't right. As investigators looked closer, cracks began to appear in his confession. Some details didn't match the evidence. Others seemed like they could have been guessed or influenced by leading questions. Doubt crept in, and the case once again slipped into uncertainty. Was George Kelly truly the killer, or just a broken man caught in a storm of fear and desperation? The people of Villisca were left with a terrifying possibility. They might have accused the wrong person, while the real killer remained free. The trial of George Kelly drew massive attention. People from all over came to witness what they believed would finally bring justice to the victims of Villisca. The courtroom was filled with tension, every eye fixed on the man accused of committing one of the most horrifying crimes in American history. At first, the prosecution leaned heavily on Kelly's confession. It was detailed, chilling, and seemed to match the brutality of the murders. But as the defense began to speak, everything started to fall apart. They argued that the confession had been forced, that Kelly, a mentally unstable man, had been pressured into admitting to something he didn't do. Witnesses took the stand, and inconsistencies began to surface. The timeline didn't fully add up. Key evidence was missing. Doubt spread through the courtroom like a slow-moving shadow. The jury deliberated, the town holding its breath once again. And then came the verdict: not guilty. George Kelly walked free. The courtroom erupted, not in relief, but in confusion and fear. If Kelly wasn't the killer, then who was? The truth felt further away than ever. The Villisca Axe murders had returned to where they began, a mystery without answers. And somewhere, in the back of every mind, a chilling thought remained: the real killer had never been caught. With George Kelly set free, the case took an even darker turn. The truth seemed to slip further away, and new theories began to emerge, each more unsettling than the last. One theory pointed to a man named Frank Fernando Jones, a wealthy and powerful figure in the community. Rumors spread that he had enemies, and some believed the murders were connected to revenge or hidden conflicts. The whispers were quiet, but persistent, suggesting that something far deeper was being hidden beneath the surface. Another chilling possibility was that the Villisca murders were not an isolated case at all. Some investigators began linking the crime to a series of similar axe murders across the United States. One name that surfaced was Henry Lee Moore, a drifter suspected of committing multiple brutal killings in a similar fashion. The patterns were eerie: families attacked in their sleep, axes used, and no clear motive. But once again, nothing could be proven. No solid evidence, no final answer. Just shadows and speculation. As the years passed, the theories only grew. Some believed the killer was a stranger who passed through town and vanished forever. Others feared it was someone local, someone who had lived among them, smiling by day and hiding darkness by night. The truth became buried beneath layers of time, rumors, and fear. And with each passing year, the Villisca Axe murders transformed from a tragic crime into something far more haunting, a mystery that refused to die. More than a century has passed since that horrific night in Villisca, but the story never truly ended. The house still stands, silent and unchanged, as if time itself refused to move forward. Visitors who have entered the home speak of strange experiences: footsteps in empty rooms, doors that slowly open on their own, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Some claim they hear children's whispers in the darkness, echoing through the halls where the Moore family once lived. The Villisca Axe murders remain officially unsolved. No killer was ever proven guilty. No final truth was ever uncovered. Only theories, shadows, and unanswered questions linger behind. But perhaps the most chilling part is not what happened in 1912, it's the idea that whatever darkness entered that house never truly left. The walls remember. The silence speaks. And for those who dare to step inside, the past feels closer than ever, like something is still there, waiting.